Welcome to a webinar on 1 + 1 = 3, a talk with Kendrick Brinson and David Walter Banks, hosted by ASMP Chicago Midwest Chapter Board President, Robin Subar. Take it away, Robin.
Thanks, Doug. Hi, everyone. I'm Robin Subar and the president of ASMP Chicago Midwest. I hope that you and all of your loved ones are healthy at this time. Thank you for joining today's webinar, 1 + 1 = 3, featuring the uber-talented and refreshingly approachable Brinson+Banks, with a roundtable discussion facilitated by Candace Gelman and Brian Schilling. This is our second webinar from Chicago, and we're pleased once again to offer this content to the entire creative community in the spirit of inclusion. Building community and connection is at the heart of why ASMP was formed, and these principles are more important now than ever before. ASMP's charter is advocacy, and if you tune into our weekly town hall webinars, you know that our leadership is lobbying on Capitol Hill right now for financial support for freelance photographers. I'd like to take this moment to thank Kendrick Brinson and David Walter Banks, as well as artist rep Candace Gelman and our board member and past president Brian Schilling for their generosity in bringing this to you today. I believe Brinson+Banks will bring us sunshine today, and not only because they are based in California. Without further ado, I will pass the mic to Brian and Candace and see you at the wrap up. Here you go, Brian.
Good day, folks. So a little background in this is ASMP did a webinar a few weeks ago with Jason Lindsay, and shortly after that, Candace came to ASMP and said, hey, I would love to get one of my artists in on this. Are you interested in any of them? And I took a look at the roster, and I'm really fascinated by Brinson+Banks. I have my own artist page, but I also have a partner that I have a second company with. And I'm really curious to know more about how other people handle creative duos. So we had a talk with David and Kendrick and figured out kind of how to set this afloat, that they have two different artists there. Together they make a third artist, and they've got this fleet of ships. So that's where I'm coming from, to really dissect and get inside their heads about how they create as a team. And with that, I'll hand it over to Candace. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and listening.
I want to thank everybody again for tuning in today to meet my fabulous duo, Brinson+Banks, 1 + 1 = 3. We have Kendrick Brinson and David Walter Banks and Brinson+Banks. So let's start the ball rolling and everybody have fun.
Thanks for coming out. Welcome to our dining room table. There are refreshments in the kitchen. Please help yourself. I'm David Walter Banks, and this is
Kendrick. Nice to meet you.
So we are going to give you a quick overview of what we are, who we are, what we do, and we're going to show you a bunch of images because we kind of do a wide range of stuff. We're going to go through this work really quick because the whole point of this is kind of the Q&A. So forgive us if we speed through, and we can always go back to stuff afterwards. So our backgrounds are in documentary photography and editorial portraiture. We first met in journalism school and worked at the student newspaper together.
Yeah, first of all, I have to tell you, I get really, really nervous at these things. So my voice shakes, or you see me sweating profusely, that's why. So newspaper photography is how we first found photography, all the way back to work at the same daily newspaper, the Red and Black at the University of Georgia. And community storytelling is where our passion for photography sparked, and that will always be the background or the backbone of our photography. Since we graduated from college, we've worked individually as two entities, like you heard earlier, David Walter Banks Photography, Kendrick Brinson Photography, and we've worked our way up from community newspaper staff jobs to freelancing for national clients, ranging from Time to ESPN to the New York Times to National Geographic, and countless others. And then we eventually decided, oh, we really like each other, we live with each other, we have, similar aesthetics, why don't we create something together? So first we're showing you the images. These are from pretty much the past year, actually probably 6 months. And this is like the stuff that we've worked on, mostly separately and some of it together for editorial clients.
And so you'll see in some of these images, like the last one that'll come up before it leads into our next work, you know, while this is journalism work, you'll see hints in the style and aesthetic and approach in these photographs that you'll see in our advertising work coming up next. Like Kendrick said, these are often documentary events. This photograph in particular was shot at a Kobe Bryant Memorial not too long ago, but the approach is very much influenced by our other work. And we kind of feel like instead of detracting from each other, they all sort of feed one into another. So like Kendrick said, we came together, we decided we wanted to create something together that was different, that was aimed at advertising. It was an industry we didn't work in yet. And so we packed up our animals and moved out to Los Angeles to start that business. And so a lot of these images that you'll see in here were created by clients, like Bud Light, obviously, on that one. But a good chunk of these are personal work, because we came out here and we had to make the images that we wanted people to hire us to make. And I think that's a huge mistake that a lot of photographers make, is they think someone else just got lucky, they were discovered, someone just handed it to them on a silver platter. But you have to show the clients that you can make the work that you want them to hire you to make first. And I won't even say the name of this client, but you've also got to work for some that maybe no one's ever heard of before you reach those big ones. And you can make just as exciting images, you know, in those places. So again, this is just a personal image made along the way. This, we got flown by a camera company to show what you could do with their cameras, and we pitched a girls' weekend in Mexico. This Flying Rabbit was shot for Toyota. So you can see we gravitate towards light and color. We look for images that are exciting, that are poppy. I think while, you know, I might be a little emo at heart, my images, I want to be happy and exciting and joyful. And for us, this is really, it's about storytelling. So, you know, our background is in newspaper photography and journalism, but for us, advertising and, you know, the more art-based images we make are just as much about storytelling. We don't want you to have to be told what's happening in the image. We want you to just get a feeling from it, be able to make up that story on your own when you see it.
All right, so coming from a background of editorial work and having clients who had both news stories and arts and entertainment sections, the leap from news portraiture to celebrity portraiture felt natural when we relocated from Atlanta to Los Angeles. We ended up building a portfolio of celebrity images for one of our longest time clients, the New York Times, and we photographed musicians for many music magazines like Fader and NME, and then kind of expanded our client base from there. A lot of these portraits were taken in hotel rooms, and you don't actually see the hotel rooms in these photos because we go through great efforts to kind of make it look like something else. We like to add color, we like to add light, we like to make it more interesting than just an ugly fancy hotel room in Beverly Hills. So the way these work is a photo editor will email us and ask if we are available on, say, Tuesday at 3 p.m. to photograph Ryan Gosling. We blush, we feel the adrenaline course through our veins, and then we say yes with 16 exclamation points. Then we receive the time, we can load in all our gear. We often, David used to have a Volkswagen, like an old Eurovan, and we would pull up to these fancy Beverly Hills hotels and have to valet his old van and pull all our gear out. Then we load all the gear up, elevators, down hallways, into the hotel rooms. And often we'll do that about 2 or 2.5 hours before the celebrity will even arrive. So that way we are sweaty and freaking out and brainstorming and using the environment when we can, setting up backdrops, and we're doing it as fast as we can so we can be calm and ready when, you know, Will Ferrell walks in the room. We tend to get told we'll get 30 minutes, but sometimes we get 1.5 minutes, sometimes we get 30 seconds. So we have to act fast, and that's where having 2 of us really comes in handy, because For example, for when we photographed Julia Roberts, David photographed her on a backdrop. We both photographed her outside in natural light from 2 different angles. And then I photographed her inside in natural light. So we can kind of toss the camera back and forth, and one of us might be talking to the person more. David, I chat a lot because I like to catch moments and I like to make people laugh. So it's kind of like an unguarded moment. David likes to be more quiet, so I have to bite my tongue when he's got the camera because sometimes he gives me a death stare because I'm chatting too much with them. And something that we kind of got used to with celebrity work that we weren't used to before, which came in handy when we started branching out to doing bigger and bigger advertising shoots, is, you know, sometimes like with Kumail, it was just Kumail and his wife. But some people will come in and it'll be like a whole cast from a TV show, like 5 people will say, and each of them has a hairdresser, each of them has a stylist, each of them has a publicist and assistant, and we have to get used to, you know, dealing with them watching us work, which is great because for advertising work, same thing. We have a huge crew watching.
So for kind of a backbone of everything we do from the time we started off in photography has been personal work. So for us, when we created Brinson+Banks, you know, we had to create those personal images that were just the portfolio images, but we also wanted to create bodies of work together that were meaningful to us in some way. And that was how LA Woman was born.
Yeah, LA Woman was born in the fall of 2015. We photographed a stylish friend in her home. This is her, Jessie Chamberlain. She's an amazing photographer. And then she recommended another friend. This is Bree. And it kind of just grew organically from there. The concept is super simple. We photograph creative women and non-binary folks in their homes, and then they recommend the next person who a creative friend of theirs to photograph. So often, you know, we're knocking on the door and meeting the person for the first time as we're walking in with just our cameras. For this, we kind of were drawn to doing it because the celebrity work, you can't really connect with people in the same way that you can at, say, like a news assignment or a portraiture assignment. Because the time is so limited. And so we really just wanted to connect with people again, and we wanted to be able to use the environment. We both love playing with natural light. We love playing, like, we didn't know she was gonna have a floral couch. Like, we didn't know she was gonna have a pink piano. So we come in and it's just like the most exciting thing ever of all these things we can play with as backdrops. So we get to like really play and then meet people. They get to use the images for whatever promotion they want, which is cool for them. And we don't have a deadline. We don't have client expectations. There's just like nothing but freedom during these shoots. And oftentimes, you know, we might get a weird idea because we saw the light coming through the stained glass window, and we'll bring that idea to a client shoot as well. So it's kind of a time to play and experiment.
Yeah, and it's a time where, you know, not that playing and experiment is not only important for the successes and for the things that we bring to the table later, but for the failures. I think it's really, really important, and, you know, just kind of a beautiful thing about personal work is that it gives you space to fail. And anyone that told you that you should never fail is lying. That's how we learn.
So the people in these photos range from musicians, songwriters, ceramicists, television actors, choreographers, screenwriters, illustrators, comic writers, jewelry makers, like to go on and on and on. We think we've done 35 or 36 now, and it's always a treat because we just get to like expand our community, our creative community in LA with every shoot.
And it's also, you know, for us, we are just as comfortable with a 30-person crew as we are with the 2 of us and our cameras. And this is a time where we get to, you know, really kind of embrace that side of ourselves. But it's also a thing that becomes helpful and useful for us as working artists, working advertising photographers. Like, for example, earlier this year before lockdown, you know, we had 2 back-to-back ad shoots, 1 week to the next. One was a big pharmaceutical shoot where we had a large crew, multiple locations, giant trucks, you know, catering, you know, the whole 9 yards. The other one was just the 2 of us and 3 talents with a location that we'd previously scouted, and nobody else. We didn't do hair, we didn't do makeup, we cast people, we liked how they looked to begin with. You know, I set up a couple lights, we shot with mostly natural light, and one is not better or worse than the other. It's just different approach, different aesthetic, different style. And, you know, a different shoot is one shoot's gonna call for one and one's gonna call for another. And, you know, it's even this kind of flexibility and adaptability that I think we're all gonna have to take on as we go forward. And, you know, after we start to figure out things with this pandemic, crews may be smaller for, you know, safety and health reasons.
And this gallery has so many images because David and I kept going back and forth. He would give me photos to edit down, and every time he'd give me photos to edit down, say 50, I would come back with 100. So I'm the reason that there's way too many photos in all these.
I think it's also, for us, I think we also always like sharing more of our images than less. I think a lot of people are great at, you know, kind of making that one image that really says everything about us. For us, we're storytellers, and there's something meaningful in the collection of those images.
And the details, yeah.
So now we're gonna show a little bit of personal work of mine and then of Kendrick's, and then we're gonna get to our Q&A. So this is a personal project called Chroma. Oh gosh, I'm gonna refer to my notes so I don't sound stupid. So for me, personal work has always been an exploration of the places where fantasy meets reality. This work is inspired by the post-impressionist, cubist, and surrealist art movements, specifically a handful of museum visits in France and Germany. It was also born from a feeling of disconnection with the world around me, which led to the idea to create a series of brief, intimate portrait sessions to rectify those feelings within myself. On more of a creative level, this project was just a way to teach myself to make portraits that felt more like a painting. But on a personal level, it filled something that was much deeper and more meaningful. So, you know, I didn't have an idea for this project that was really groundbreaking. I just needed to make something. And for me, I guess it was a little bit of a selfish project because I needed to do something that would fulfill me, that would excite me. But it was also something that kind of jump-started me and creatively. And like a lot of personal projects, I did it for the sake of creation and for the sake of making art, but it's led to work for both myself and Brinson+Banks. Like this guy who was AndyBot, I think they called him. He was going to be the first human to be digitized and put into the cloud so that his relatives and loved ones could have conversations with him after he's gone.
But this is a great example of how personal work is something we create because we want to, yes. But then like clients will hire you to create more of it, and it kind of expands it, and it might not be what you originally, like the direction you wanted the project to go in, but it expands it in surprising ways.
And then during quarantine, I decided to continue this project. So this is Kendrick and our sliding closet door.
I was doing a back bend for a couple minutes.
And one of me, because I always wanted to do one of me, and I always was afraid I would ruin this idea that I had, and I didn't care if I ruined it myself. So this is another project, and while the images will seem very different from the last, for me it's kind of connected at the same time. So when I first moved to the West Coast, I was in awe of the desert, and that deep fascination has persisted to this day. The people that choose to make this tragically beautiful wasteland their home, and those like myself who just feel a magnetic drawn to this harsh landscape in the middle of nowhere and find themselves returning to it again and again. To me, there's a magical or mystical quality to the desert. And in my personal work, as I said before, I'm often looking for a sense of magical realism. Now, this project's not meant to be a full story of this vast place, nor a linear one. Instead, I aim to tell a fictional tale of the California desert told through documentary photographs. I want these images to inspire the viewer to make up their own story. So I look for the ambiguous, the mysterious, and the surreal in the everyday. And now again, these are documentary photographs, but so when I don my journalism hat for assignment work, I abide by strict ethical guidelines as documentarian, truth teller, and unbiased observer. But in my personal work, I'm much more interested in the gray area. I want to inject myself into the story. I want to inject my opinion. I want to fully embrace every element of my influence on the image. Many of these people are not just my subjects, they become dear friends. Others I just share a moment with along the way, preserved only by the images in this fragmented memory, like this naked gentleman right here.
Dear friends, who's flipping me off.
And so as this story has progressed, I've started to shoot on different camera formats and investigate different places. And now I'm trying to kind of figure out how all these different pieces fit together and how the new images relate to the old images. This one I'm particularly fond of just because I can't imagine being around that many humans right now. And again, you know, for me, this personal work is often just a creative exploration in a way that I can teach myself new ways of working, that I can try new things, and that I can, you know, hopefully learn something.
Something I really love about David's photography is his photos kind of, I think he touched on this, his photos make you wonder what's going on. With Chroma, you want to know how he pulled that off without doing it in Photoshop. With some of these, you want to know how there's a hot pink donkey. And so instead of like with his news photography, which is very like answering questions, like this is a man and he's got a mask on and you have all this information, these images kind of make your imagination move forward and try to figure out what's going on, and I like that. So here goes. Here's my Sun City project I've been working on since the dawn of time.
She's probably going to start crying when she talks about these people, so be prepared.
I'm not going to cry today. So I left my last newspaper staff job in Augusta, Georgia in 2009. I was a brand new freelancer when I saved money and flew from my new freelance home in Atlanta, Georgia to Phoenix, and then drove north to Sun City, Arizona for the first time. This is one of the, and I'm going to say first time for the fourth time. This is one of the first times as a photographer that I could decide how much time I had to take photos and when and how I shared them, after years of having unfinished projects rushed and published by the newspapers I had worked for. About a month before I went, I saw a 5-minute scene in a feature film where this strange place with palm trees and cacti and golf cart lanes and cul-de-sacs and old folks everywhere were. I'm telling you, this is like a second in a movie, so you never know where you're going to get inspiration from. Instead of watching the film, I was distracted in Googling this place that was so foreign from what I grew up seeing in South Carolina. I found the location on an IMDb page and Googled it, and then read about the age-restricted 55 and older 14 square mile city of 40,000 retirees. And then I read about the Sun City Palms, a cheerleading squad made up of women all the way in their 80s. And then I read about the 50th anniversary of the place that will begin the next month, and I knew I had to go there. Even though I do feel the weight and importance of working on news stories, and I learned so much from that work, I've always been drawn to creating more cheerful, colorful feature photography. David and I have this in common. I love witnessing joy. I was the photographer you sent to photograph the parade and the dogs jumping in the public pool at the community newspaper, and I loved it. When I started this project in December of 2009, I never would have imagined that I'd be returning for 10 years now. This work has been published all over the world, including a French magazine this past month. I'm so inspired and intrigued by this place that the people who are done with working and done with raising kids decide to move to. There's an emphasis on socializing and learning and playing there, and I think that's an important priority at any age, and that's not something you see in images of 90-year-olds. And so I kind of just love just seeing this, like, you're not seeing the grandma knitting in a rocking chair. You're seeing her in sequins doing a split, which is just blows my mind and makes me so excited. And I'm an obvious outsider, a 20-something, now 30-something redheaded woman with the camera. I stick out like a sore thumb in the city of retirees. So when I meet people or they stop and ask what the heck I'm doing on the street, I tell them I love this place and that I come again and again solely to explore it and to take photos. And then they tell me they too love this place, and then we have something really important in common. Next thing I know, I'm invited to the dance on Friday, invited to the nearby recreation center to hear a chorus practice, invited to take, oh my gosh, I am to start crying.
Told you.
I really love this project, I can't help it. I'm invited to take photos of yoga and invited to the dressing room before the synchronized swimmers perform. Oh, and I've got to meet Larry's neighbor, Jerry, because I won't believe the way he has decorated his bedroom with taxidermy. There's more than 100 clubs, from leather working to tap dancing to cheerleading to weaving to pickleball, which my new, or should I say old friend, Larry, took the time to teach me how to play one morning there. I've been working on this project for 10 years, but there's always something new to photograph, like the new dog costume parade for Halloween. Or last year, I photographed the members of the new LGBT club there. And this March, I finally made it to photograph the senior prom. The senior prom. I love that name, sorry. I'm exhausted by it all every time I go. The sun is bright and harsh. It's hot. I'm constantly trying to take better photos than I did the last 4 visits. So essentially, I'm competing with myself to photograph this small town over and over and over. But I keep returning. And bless his heart, David has to give me a pep talk on the phone every single time I go. I keep coming home with 1,000 new photos, happy and tired and inspired. I have something to learn there over and over. And this quote from Tom Woods, who I met playing lawn bowling with friends, there captures it. Enjoy your youth. I'll tell you, you never know how much you have left.
And somehow we timed that exactly to the last minute without trying to at all. So without further ado, I'm going to stop this share and we'll shut our mouths and listen to y'all's questions. Well, then we'll open them again.
Thank you so much for sharing, guys. That was an amazing breadth of work. And I can't believe how many different looks and forms you've dipped your toes into and kept a great quality of work. Candace, what drew you to add them to your roster with the rest of your amazing talent?
Well, thank you, Brian. Taking a look at everything just now, I said, yes, I felt it. I knew it. I was very much attracted to them because they came from being photojournalists, which is very passionate to me. It's very real. It's authentic. They have a pure, honest voice. And they're a beautiful couple, and their energy is just beyond fantastic. Everybody, well, when I met them, I go, wow, they're amazing. They're just amazing. Their work comes through as who they really are, with that color and that life and the authentic moments that you want to show to the world. And for me, it's always been about the art, never really much about the commercial aspect, even though I am a commercial agent, but I've always been drawn to true, honest photography that is very artful. So that's where it came. I really feel too, at this particular time, well, for a while now, people have been wanting to work with a team for the reasons they had mentioned. You know, they do different angles, they can, you know, play off of each other. One can do one thing, the other can do the other. And it's wonderful having this fantastic duo. I am very honored to have them on my roster, and I feel, as I did from the first moment, a real connection from the heart. And I tend to always go with my gut. So it's been a pure pleasure. And now in these times, I feel it's a great opportunity, especially for Kendrick and David, because they never had to have these huge productions going on with tons of people. They're great by themselves. They're so great by them. I mean, that's where their core comes from. So that's really what we need now, people to get out there and be able to tell a story. And they're the best storytellers, no matter what format it's in, no matter what they choose to put out there from their storytelling. They do it amazing, and they do it together. Or they do it independently. We have 1 + 1 = 3. I have the 3, but they have the 1. So it works well. And Yeah, it's been really great. They're very, very special. And as I'm sure everybody could pick up, they're positive, they're joyful. Every client we've ever worked with loves them, always wants to work with them again and again. And they make everybody so comfortable and they make everything fun. So I think that pretty much says it all. And I'm very grateful.
Very nice. Thank you, Candace.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of questions coming in, and we have a pretty good roster of questions from before that were entered when people registered for the webinar. So I'm going to start tearing into those right now and start with Sarah Swati's question, who asks, and you've covered some of this, so feel free to elaborate as you can. Do you both photograph the same subject simultaneously? Switch back and forth. Please offer feedback in front of the subject. So tell us kind of the difference between a commercial job, an editorial job. Are you both there? Is one of you with the client? Are you both shooting? Tell us, go a little deeper on that, please.
Yeah, so I mean, it really depends on the job and what it calls for. As often as we can, we like to be both making images at the same time. So, you know, if it's a lifestyle library campaign for a client, we'll often both be shooting. Sometimes we have two Digitechs, so we can both be tethered to a different one. We'll shoot with continuous lighting on those shoots when we can, so that we both can be shooting and we're not tied to those strobes, especially because Kendrick shoots a lot and overloads our strobes. But that's not always the way it works. Sometimes one of us, you know, if there's one main shot, one of us will be getting that while the other one looks at the monitor with the client, takes feedback. And, you know, sometimes it'll just be like, I'll walk back over with that feedback, pick up the camera out of Kendrick's hands and keep going while she switches places. You know, on our celebrity shoots, we normally we'll both help in every setup that we do. And oftentimes we'll both take a turn shooting, but since it's more of that like one-on-one connection, we'll often each have our own setup that we're really sort of taking control of. But even on those, you know, I'll have the idea, Kendrick will make it better, or vice versa, you know. And
how likely is it because you guys each have your own solo projects or solo jobs as well. So how likely is it if I hired one of you that the other is going to show up?
Well, for the more news stuff, sometimes we do get hired. Like you might have seen a photo in there that we shot for the Washington Post right before the lockdown of people at the drive-in. And it was kind of great that they asked both of us to do it because it was very complicated in the rain. We had about 15 minutes to photograph, so it helped that we had two of us, and I was feeling more cheery that day, so I got to knock on people's windows in the dark and be like, can we take your picture, please? But so we can kind of trade off on energy with that kind of stuff. But usually for like the news stuff where it's more sensitive, it's really overwhelming to be photographed. We both appreciate that, and so we try to do that solo. And that's kind of something that's important to me too, because I have a different aesthetic and a different approach to David. I work differently when I'm working by myself than we work together. And I think both the ways I work are great, but sometimes it's just to respect the person and the story. It makes more sense for just one of us to go. And usually most of our clients, I think, understand that. They hire just David for a story or just me. And when we are hired together for magazine work, more like celebrity portraiture, I always delight in the fact that when more than one photo is run, it's usually one from each of us, because then I'm like, okay, good, I'm still as good as one of my favorite photographers.
But I mean, it's normally the advertising work and the celebrity portraiture that we're both going to be there, and the journalism projects we do on our own. And, you know, and when we do the editorial that's not celebrity work together, it's normally because it's, you know, like say recently we did a story that was related to the Me Too movement, and it was for Mother Jones, and it was for Mark Merman, an editor that we've, you know, both known together, who's known us together as a couple for years. And so he reached out and asked us to both work on that project together, whereas a different one, he might just call me or her.
Thank you. That's great.
Okay, the next question is from SE. Why do you choose the equipment you use, such as camera, lens, lighting, etc.?
Both of us are not gear nerds. Like, I've just stuck with Canon because I already have the lenses and I like the quality is good and clients are happy with it. David switches gear more often than I do. He sometimes gets a little tired and needs like something to shake up his photography, so he switched to medium format for a little bit.
Yeah, so like in the past, 6 years, I've gone from shooting like a Mamiya with film or Canon to Mamiya with film to a Pentax 645Z to a Sony A7R III back to Canon. And really all of those, I don't think any one thing is better than another. I think for certain people's aesthetics, a certain piece of equipment might help them, benefit them, work better with the way in which they shoot. For me, it's all about if I'm feeling stuck, if I feel like I'm making the same pictures, I'll throw something new in the mix because it'll make me slow down or speed up, or it'll make the camera be not there or be more obviously there. And we shoot with pro photo lighting gear now, but for years we shot with Alien V's.
You don't have to have, I know it's an easy thing to think you have to have the best gear to make the best photos. You don't. I can take a great photo on my iPhone and so can you. It's just a matter of understanding light. I mean, you're gonna have a larger file with better camera, but you don't get stuck on the gear.
Yeah, when you're first, especially when until you get to the point where you're like, God, I am so good and I just can't get the photo I want because of my camera, maybe it's time to get what you need, but especially for people first starting out, it's a hammer. It's only as good as the person holding it.
And we've used flashlights to light stuff. You can get creative. You don't have to have the nicest gear. So just remember that. I know it's interesting sometimes to find out what lenses people like and everything, but don't get too stuck on it.
Thank you. I'm going to put a couple of questions together. We've got Haley Sawyer and Lauren Justice are both curious to know more about transitioning from a documentary background into a commercial world. So Haley asks, how do you build a commercial profile from a more documentary background? And Lauren says, how do you transition from photojournalism to commercial work? And how does one get started getting clients and finding balance?
So David and I both already knew how to market just from being editorial freelancers. We knew that we had to do email blasts and have new personal work to share in our portfolios and try to go to meetings at least once a year in New York and other kind of hubs where the publications were. So when we decided we wanted to team up and do advertising work together, and we didn't really have a portfolio of that, we shot. And when we first moved to LA, because we left a lot of our Southern clients behind, we had a lot of time to panic and make new photos. So we photographed the people that we knew, we photographed models, we photographed, sometimes we would be our own stylist. We just kept making photos that we wanted to get hired to make. We weren't copying anyone. We were trying to do something that was like a mesh of our documentary and portraiture styles that really could translate to something that brands would like. So I think that's an important thing that David already mentioned earlier today, is you have to create the work that you want to be paid to create, basically.
Yeah, and I think you also have to not expect to just suddenly start off at the top. I know fantastic photographers who work mainly for, local advertising clients and make a really good living. And I think, that's a way by tapping your, little boutique store that's in your neighborhood and saying, hey, I want to do a shoot with you, building your portfolio that way, and even, and making money along the way, I think can be a great way to do that. And, there's also no one way. There are documentary photographers out there who just keep on making that amazing documentary work, and then come time for, a nonprofit to do a big campaign, they'll hire someone to make, some tragic looking documentary photo because that's who they are and what they do. For us, we kind of wanted to build a little bit of a different aesthetic for that identity. And then
and we have a rep. Candace.
I was about to say, I don't want to at all neglect the fact that, we're with Candace Gelman, and before that we were with Stocklin Martel. And so people have known Candace for years, and she spent years building a really strong reputation for herself. And so when people like our work but don't know us, and then they see us, you know, that we're on her roster, they can say, okay, I know I can bid these guys for a job because I trust Candace, and she wouldn't have someone on her roster who I can't trust, who's going to let me down. So, you know, not that it's easy to get a rep. Obviously, you got to make the work. You got to attract them. You know, maybe you need to start at a smaller rep, work your way up. And I'm not saying at all that you can't do it on your own. There's plenty of photographers that do and do a great job. But in an industry where there's a lot of money on the line for big jobs, having someone that you trust and having someone vouch for you can be huge, which is why, the same reason why building relationships, trying to meet with people at ad agencies, you know, show them your work, even now, I guess if it's asking for a Zoom call or whatever, and letting them know, see who you are, see how you act, see that they would like to spend, you know, 4 12-hour days on set with you.
Yeah, and I think if you are thinking about going with a rep, then you should really meet with them. And this is like a marriage. Like, you're signing a contract. They're like going to represent, like literally represent you when you can't be there. And you want it to be someone who you wouldn't mind having dinner with, who you would enjoy like seeing after a meeting and having like just like a long-term relationship with. So that's, we were between reps when our former rep retired. We met with a lot of reps, and then when we spoke to Candace, she just like, she was more like what she said about us. Like, we feel the same way about her. Like, she has like really like supports our like personal work. She really supports our energy. She lets us like be emo on the phone with her. So it's really just, you need to think about it as like a long-term relationship. If it's someone that isn't taking your calls, you know, just to meet, then maybe do it on your own.
And it's also needs to be someone that fits your personality. If you're just kind of real sort of cut and dry, like strictly business kind of person, you want someone that's going to just be like that. I want someone who's going to be, you know, represent me well in the room and be amazing at business, but then talk to me about their shaman afterwards. So, you know, I need someone who is going to mesh with my personality, whereas you need someone that will mesh with yours.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Okay, so there's some questions coming up and they overlap. Some of this might have, I think, been covered, but, you know, what tips, tricks, pros and cons you recommend for transitioning from newspaper to freelance? This is from Alicia. And then Stephanie asked, how are you able to make a move into commercial work from photojournalism? What was your biggest challenge? So I think you're kind of talking about this, but they're going a little deeper.
Yeah, I think our biggest challenge was we had to make the work, and we couldn't just do one shoot with a model and make our whole portfolio that. We had to show a range of what we could do. We had to show part of the LA Woman project that's come in handy for us is people want to see more interiors, and we liked working on this project, so we kept working on it. And now when clients, you know, say, oh, we love your photos, we want you to bid on this job, sometimes they're sending us photos of LA Women. So you have to constantly be creating new work. And that's really something we emphasized when we were transitioning, or not transitioning, when we were adding another industry that we were focusing on.
Well, and another thing for us, which is a big hurdle that definitely needs to be practiced before you get on set with a friend or whoever, was directing talent, because we knew how to be storytellers. We knew how to see the light, make the light, you know, we understand it, the moment and the composition. But once you get to a point where instead of just being the documentarian, you're having to set up the photo and create the image and have, you know, find your style for directing that talent. You know, for us, we kind of tend to literally give the person a script like we were making a film, have them run through it and shoot it like we would a documentary moment. But you have to find out your way of connecting with people, of directing talent, and of running a set, you know, which could be being kind of the one that people are looking for answers of 30 people and have to be confident and know what to tell them, whether you do or not.
Yeah, I recommend everyone find a David because I'm very introverted and he's the one who's smiling and talking to everyone on set while I'm like just eating Oreos in the corner.
Going to your journalism, I got a question from Laura Supperton. Oh, well, that one's about editing techniques. She's curious about your editing techniques. But I was going to try to put together about photo editors. Tasha Van Zant has, what advice do you have on reaching out to photo editors? And Jacob Moskovich asked, how does one work with editors? So maybe we could touch briefly on your creative process of editing and then also working with a photo editor.
So if you're talking about, it depends on, it's one of those ambiguous words. If you're talking about the, like, if she's saying editing, like deciding which images to pick, or are we talking about like the processing of the photo, post-processing stuff?
I see just the question, what are your editing techniques? So maybe a toe dip into both of those.
Okay, well, just the first one's easy because when it comes into post-processing images, I think just because we come from that documentary background where we couldn't alter our images, we try to make everything in camera. I mean, you know, there's ad shoots where they'll need things
Like
comped or changed in the background, and for that we hire a retoucher. But as far as just, you know, the majority of the images that we showed and that ridiculous amount that we showed, it's pretty much all in camera and we're not doing much post-processing.
Can you tell us a bit about working with the photo editor, reaching out to them, making that connection, and then how that exchange goes into and out of a job?
Yeah, so like David said earlier, relationships are really important. David and I try to reply to emails really fast. We send out email blasts and we pay attention to who's opening the email, who's replying. And we've been doing this for several years, so we've developed relationships with people. So if we're in New York and we send out an email saying we're gonna be in town and we only get 5 replies, we might email one of the editors we know and be like, can we grab you a coffee? Because some of the things is not about showing the photos. People can see our photos on Instagram and what we're up to, but it's about like, hey, I still love making photos. You still love hiring people. Let's do something together. But it's also, I think, a balance of like, being sincere. Like we like making photos and we are marketing all the time. Even Instagram is marketing, but we also like the relationships are genuine. So I think editors grow, like Candace said, when we work with people, they grow to know that, you know, they can rely on us to get a good photo and they can rely on us to do it on deadline. And they can rely on us to, you know, like David, for the past 3 shoots he did, the people emailed the editors and was like, we loved David, thank you so much. So I think just being like a good person in general is important. We do email blasts. We do portfolio meetings.
And I mean, you know, if we're talking about just the actual like technical process of going back and forth with an editor, you know, if we're talking about more of the journalism editorial type projects, what normally happens is the editor already knows of us or, you know, has worked with us before. They reach out, we get the email, and it really depends how it goes from that process from one editor to another. Some will reach out and just say, hey, can you do a portrait? Just go do your thing. Or they'll say, hey, we have a story. There's this event going on. You know what to do. Just shoot how you shoot. Sometimes they'll call and they'll have much more of a, you know, very specific or very loose concept. Like there's been times where an editor reached out, actually, but ESPN editor reached out and asked us if we could recreate one of our own celebrity portraits for a series that was going to be in different cities and places. I think it was like 6 different shoots. And so that's how that one went. Sometimes they'll have more of just like loose ideas and things they want you to think about. And from there, you know, we go back and forth with the editor on their concept. We give our input. From there, again, on most of these editorial shoots, we're just there on our own. There's often not, unless it's like a big cover shoot, the editor's normally not there. So we just kind of have freedom to create. And then afterwards, we cut that selection down to what we think is, you know, gonna best represent the vision that we had and that the photo editor had. and hopefully give them as many options as we can without giving them one that we're going to go, oh, I didn't want them to publish that. And sometimes they'll come back and say, hey, you know, it's going between these images, and more often than not, they just make their selects from there.
Yeah.
Or if you didn't do well, they say, hey, do you have any more from this area?
Luckily, that hasn't happened in a long time. But, you know, sometimes, like David said, you just get an email, you go and do it, you transmit, and then you see it in print. And that but some editors you're talking to on the phone, it really depends on the story and the editor.
Yeah, and the relationship you've built over the years.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put together a couple questions here. One's from Manon. How do you find inspiration for new personal or professional projects? And how do you work with 2 cameras on one set, which you've touched on already? And Katie asked, would your work be possible and as successful if you did not live in Los Angeles?
I'll start with the last one because we freelanced in Atlanta for a couple of years separately before we formed Brinson+Banks and moved to LA. And so we started Brinson+Banks and wanting to do commercial work, and we went to New York and showed it. There was good reception, but we kept seeing photographers flown in from LA and New York for Atlanta jobs. We'd go get beers with these people and be like, wait. So we also,
like the short answer is no. It probably wouldn't be. Do I think that you can become a successful commercial photographer from, you know, living anywhere, a small town? I totally do. But it's just going to be a different path. It would have to be one where you built such a name for yourself that people wanted to bring you in, which is always how it is. But when you just tack on that little New York or LA or Chicago, whatever, these big markets, Paris, after your name, it's people automatically have something in their head that it means more. Is it real? No, it's total bullshit. But does it matter and come into play? I think so.
Well, also sometimes we'll get like a big ad shoot just because we're in LA. You know, like they're shooting a commercial here already. The weather's good is one of the reasons that people shoot here all the time. So we'll be brought on to it last minute when they decide they need stills. So there's advantages to being in the place where they're already shooting for sure.
Yeah, and the crews are here, you know, it's like it also looks better for us when we say, you know, they want to shoot in LA and we're like, oh, awesome. We have all our people here. You know, we know the best spot that we're going to go to. And, oh man, my lighting guy is going to be perfect for this. You know, that type of thing. So.
We could have done it in Atlanta, but we're both impatient. And we always are raising the bar. So if we were doing well in there, we wanted to go a little bit higher.
But that said, I mean, I could immediately list off amazing photographers that are building or have built incredible careers that are not in these major cities. And then
I can stay inspired.
We kind of talked about how we both work on set already, but the how we get inspiration for personal projects, I think that's been kind of all over the board. Like, you know, Kendrick said, Sun City itself ended up being inspirational to her, but really it was just keeping her eyes open to what piqued her interest. And like she said, it was like a 1-minute scene from the opening credits of a movie. It wasn't what the movie was about at all. They didn't mention where the place was. She just saw this place and said, I have to figure out what that is. Sorry, I keep shaking the tape. And, you know, and then it kind of compounded from there.
We both also, like David gets really inspired by getting out of LA. You know, we're not necessarily people who love living in a giant city. We do like LA, but we're not drawn to that necessarily. But he goes camping. I started doing watercolors. Like, it doesn't have to be all photo. And I think I get burnt out. I think there's, David does too. And I think there's a lot of pressure when you're a freelancer to be performing. And you look at social media and everyone's successful and everybody's doing things. What no one's calling me today. I think it's good to have hobbies, have other interests, have friends that aren't only photographers, to not just be so stuck in that bubble. And we're already in the bubble together. You know, we're sitting in our dining room doing work right now. So, you know, we kind of like, it's important to stretch out, go to museums. You never know where you're going to find inspiration. It's not just going to be in the newspaper or an assignment.
Definitely look at something other than just photography. And I think also just, I think sometimes it can be not what you're getting inspiration from, but how you're feeding yourself, you know, like, are you killing yourself agonizing over coming up with your next big personal project, but you're not getting enough rest. You're not, you know, meditating, praying, whatever you do, you're not going and like finding any solace and quiet. You're not giving your brain time to breathe and be able to, you know, kind of see what's rolling around there other than everyday anxiety.
And you can always be doing all the right things and there's just a lull. So you got to have something else that brings you happiness in life that's not just work. And I think this time where everyone's stuck at home is a good time to figure that out.
Yeah. I want to bring everybody's attention to the hour. We're getting close to 2 o'clock. So are you guys still good for a little bit?
You're fine.
Cool. So if anybody is attending does need to bow out, I would like to let you know that this webinar will be available on ASMP's national, I think it's YouTube. Is that right, Robin?
I had to unmute myself. On the national website, it will be available. It will be recorded.
Cool. Thank you, Robin. So yeah, we will have that available sometimes within a day. That happens. And on to the next question. I've got a nice one from Mary Rafferty, who asks, when you are working on these personal projects like LA Woman, what parameters do you set? What parameters do you put on the images that you are extending to the subject? Also, are you sending them your final choices only? How does that process work with sharing images for a personal project with the subject?
So, I mean, I know Kendrick will probably have something to say on this. I mean, we only give them images that we are comfortable being out in the world, you know, that we're happy with. So they can't just get anything from it. And then, you know, the second part of it is a little more complicated. I think there's a lot of photographers that would never give digital files of a personal project to a subject because that would just horrify them. And yes, it probably could maybe cause some issue with fine art print sales in some future world that we live in, but and we don't do that with every project, but for this one, it's something that we want it to be just as much about connecting with the people. We want them to be able to use it for themselves. And the parameters that we put are that, you know, on any of their social media, like stuff that they're just putting out of themselves, they're allowed to use it. If, say, a publication comes to them, like recently happened, a publication that Adobe puts out, a magazine, wanted to do a story on one of these people, and so they were sent to us to license the photo from there. So, you know, we tell them, please don't do anything with this other than personal and social, and ask us if you want to. Could they? Yeah, but it's just not, I guess the more important part for us is that we are giving them something to walk away with on that project. I also have friends that will work on a big documentary project, but then they'll just send prints that are, you know, just kind of snapshotty photos that they did of their subjects during the projects that aren't going to make it into their, you know, final book edit. But at the same time, they're giving something back to them, connecting with those people, making those people feel like, you know, the photographer did something other than just take.
Yeah, for the LA Women one, we pretty much have a routine now. We go in, we pick out our spots, we pick out clothes out of their closet. We ask them if there's a spot they want to be photographed in, and we do our thing, but then we say at the end, do you need a headshot? Is there anything that you need that we haven't done already? Because this project is more about collaborating. Not all projects are like that. Some we're just a fly on the wall, but this is about something about like building something together, all three of us.
Do you do any kind of model release or contract with them?
You know, we should have, we haven't, and really that's because all of these people we can still contact if, you know, if someone reaches out to us and wants to license one of their images, say to use for advertising or something, you know, that's a situation because of our relationship with these people. They're not talent that we're hiring. They're people that we, you know, in a best case scenario, become friends with. And we would want to contact them to get permission for that specific request and pay them as well, you know, if their likeness is going to be used. Should we be better business people and get a release for every single person we photograph? Absolutely.
It makes it a little bit more uncomfortable though. It feels less like a thing you're doing together and more like a taking scenario. So.
But that's also just us being like overly polite Southern people that are worried about everyone else's feelings.
Exactly.
A good consideration, though.
Yeah.
So one question that was asked by Carolyn is, how do the two of you plan new marketing with stay-at-home protocol? And I could probably add to that quickly too from my end, but what would you say about that?
So one benefit of us having all these different like entities is because commercial photography is just, you can't have big crews, like all the shoots have been paused for a moment. We're still doing editorial work. So there's a benefit of us having these wearing these different hats.
And not just editorial work, not feature work, but only journalism, which, you know, is still a necessary job.
Yeah, so we're essential workers in California. We're going with masks, we're going with long lens, we're not going inside. But if we only did advertising work, we wouldn't be working other than doing, you know, photographing each other and hanging out the closet.
And I mean, I don't think, you know, Candace could probably speak better on this than us. I think the answer is there's not a right answer, but what I absolutely know is that delicately needs to be involved with marketing right now. I think it's easy to rub people the wrong way. Tensions are high with everyone. Everyone is a little weird inside, even if they don't notice it on the outside. So I think, you know,
just be sensitive about it.
Yeah, to be sensitive to like what you're pushing, how you're talking, the words you're using, how much you're putting out, what position that person might be in.
Let's hear what Candace has to say.
Yes. Yeah. Hi, I'm sorry, I was on mute. So I feel the most important thing right now is staying connected. People you know, stay in touch, see how they're doing, tell them how you're doing, just stay in touch. And that's number one. Number two is if you have any ideas of, well, if you have new work, personal work you're doing, definitely share it. And with Kendrick and David, you know, we've even gotten people that want to use them where one of them is the subject and one of them is photographing. So it really depends. But I think the most important thing during these times is to stay visible, stay in touch, and be a good human being and be sensitive. So that's my advice.
Sorry, I was on mute. Question from Pu Huang is really interested about your Instagram philosophy. It says there's a great mix of personal and professional posts. Specifically, Kendrick, how do you choose what to post in your feed or your stories? Is Instagram maintained for your own personal record or also for potential clients and editors?
Okay, so I was one of those people who was like on instant messenger in like 6th grade. I was on Flickr, I was on Fotolog, like I've always been talking to strangers online. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm not someone who's planning things. So I might I knew we had this talk coming up and I wanted to promote it because I would love for more people to be, you know, in this conversation with us about what's going on right now in photography. But so I thought of ways to promote that. But a lot of what I share on my personal page, you know, I mentor female photographers and I'd say, don't share photos of your pets all day like me. Like, don't, like, this is something that I like, that's part of my personality. Like, I love animals, I love plants. Like, you're gonna see that I cook vegan food if you follow me. I use the Brinson+Banks account. I'm silly on it sometimes, but it's more of like behind the scenes on set. If you're curious what our sets look like, I have a lot of saved things on our profile that you can see kind of behind the scenes of what it looks like to be on a set. I think on that account, I like to share more of like look at this, like you'll see our portfolio, it might be like an amazing photo, but it's really like in the corner of a very busy conference room, you know? So I like to show that's like, I think sometimes we look at social media and we think, I can't do that, but it was just me and David lugging the stuff in there, moving the chairs and photographing the person. So I like to show, kind of get rid of the like artificial part of social media and just share authentic, real life stuff. But that being said, I am marketing. Like, I love photography, I'm sharing it, but you can also hire me, you know, same with David. And so it's not like something that I'm forcing, and that's just something that naturally I do. So I can't really advise you to show photos of your dog every day, but
I mean, I think a piece of that and what people respond to with Kendrick is that she's genuine. You know, if she was interested in something else, she would be showing something else. And it shows her personality, which I think kind of the social media is a way, I mean, it's obviously not as good as in person, but it's a way to show people your personality and make them think that they know you, even if they don't. And someone else's personality who was maybe just like really kind of straightforward, or maybe they were just like sarcastic about everything all day long, they should put that out, not, you know, photos of flowers on walks and our dogs rolling on their back, like Kendrick, along with her wonderful photos. But yeah, I can't speak much to social media. She's much better at it. I'm just saying she makes me do it. I'm saying what I see in her is that she's real. She lets people know who she is. So I think that's a big thing in photography or being any artist, is to trying to be honest with yourself about who you are and not try to emulate someone else, but, you know yourself and know, okay, well, this is my personality, so that's what I'm going to put out. Whatever that is.
And even if you don't like, you know, social media, and you're not someone like David, he's not staring at it all the time like me, I do think it's an amazing platform to get your work out for free to people where it doesn't feel like you're marketing to them. So I might be sharing new work, and it's because, like, let me tell you about this person that I met, and I cried, and we had this amazing moment, but also, hey, I'm a photographer, you can hire me. So, like, even if you're not doing like 7 posts a week, you should post at least once or twice a week if you have a social media account, because that's just passive marketing. Someone's eating their bowl of cereal in the morning and they see your photo and they think, oh, David Banks, he's in LA. I have something for him this week. And in terms of like my personal stuff, I'm always taking pictures of my walks. I walk my dogs all around our neighborhood all the time. And a photo editor just 2 weeks ago, Krista Chapman at New York Times, hired me to take pictures of my walk, because everyone's stuck at home and all of a sudden noticing the hummingbirds and the honeysuckles. And so I got hired to do what I did for free every day anyway. So there's little surprises and treats like that if you show a little bit of your personality, but don't force it. Like, if doesn't come naturally, just share something you're proud of and give a little bit of back information that maybe someone who's looking at the photo wouldn't know unless you said it.
Great, thank you so much. We have a lot of questions still out there, but we got to wrap it up. So I'm gonna throw this last question out there, thinking about the future, from Eliasa Johnson, who asks, how do you see the future of photography past COVID? What will remain the same, and what do you see changing?
I mean, I guess the old adage goes, something like, the only thing definite is that, wait, what is it?
What?
Hold on.
The only thing is change is the only
Change is the only thing definite? Anyway.
No.
So, I mean, you know, our industry is always evolving, always changing. That's always been how it is. Honestly, you know, Kendrick and I just got into this in, we started our professional careers in 2007, right when like the first financial collapse of recent memory happened and the whole industry was changing. Everyone was telling us that newspapers were dying, and we had to kind of constantly be open to evolving from the second we started in this industry. We came in right after the heyday, as everyone likes to call it. So I think that's going to be key, is to just be adaptable, to not be clinging to the way things work. And I mean, you know, who knows, maybe a couple years we have a vaccine for this and everything's completely back to how it was. Is that likely that it'll even go back to how it was, even if things do change? Probably not. So I mean, for us, stuff like the fact that we don't have to work with a giant crew, that we are happy, you know, scaling things down is, I think, going to be a important and maybe necessary thing. You know, I think, I don't know. It's just, it's inevitably going to be different, but it's really hard to change or to know what that change is going to be. I think we need to be open to it, and also, I guess, just kind of let go a little, know that we aren't going to be able to control it, and we need to just resolve ourselves to continue to be artists, continue to be photographers, no matter what comes next, because that's kind of always how this industry has proceeded.
Amen.
Well, thank you so much, guys. You're very inspiring, and I have no doubt that with all the experience you have and your creative vision, you're so nimble that you're gonna make it out of this, and we'll be able to experience your work for years to come. At this point, I think, Candace, do you have anything else you'd want to say? You're on mute, Candace.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was muted, but my last thing is just, you know, thank you all. Everybody be healthy, stay safe. And as everybody says, we'll get through this together. And as David and Kendrick both said, we'll just keep it going, keep filling yourself with beauty and love and joy and experience. And even though you can't see the people you love, stay in touch with them. Do a FaceTime, do a Zoom call, talk across the street, wave hello from your car when it's someone's birthday, wishing them a happy birthday. You know, we're all doing the best we can, but this was great. And Brinson and Banks, you're the best. I love you guys. Thank you.
Should we bring our dogs in? They've been waiting in the other room this whole time. Dogs! Come on! He's been very excited about this. We had to lock the cat away. One of our cats. Come on, Dogs, hurry! T! He just woke up.
Oh, hey, but
We have pet voices. We're trying to not do them around other people, but here's Tia. Thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us in our dining room.
guys.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up. I promised you sunshine, and I think we all agree that that was absolute sunshine and joy. Thank you so much to all of you for joining. Special thanks to all of you registrants, and David and Kendrick, and the doggies, and Candace and Brian, and our help behind the scenes from Rose Cannon and Doug Pizak. Please sign up for our newsletters at asmp.org to stay up to date on the latest information regarding COVID and our community at large. You can register today for our June 1st webinar entitled LinkedIn Intervention with Burke Creative for creative specific tips on using LinkedIn to grow your business. We understand that not all of you are members of ASMP and that you may not be in a position right now to join, but if you feel our efforts are of value, please consider visiting ASMP-donate. We will put both of those links in the chat, and contributing to our legal and advocacy fund if you can. But in the meantime, stay safe, take good care, and see you next time. Thank you so much.